You know how it goes. Fall rolls around, the first sniffles appear, you navigate the holidays thinking you're maybe in the clear, and then boom, spring arrives, bringing another round.
Yeah, it feels like that twice-a-year pattern. It's just baked into the seasons for the common cold.
Exactly. It feels almost like clockwork.
Yeah.
We all think about, how we catch colds, the sneezing being close to people.
Right, the direct transmission stuff.
But the timing, that predictable fall and spring bump, that's what's really interesting and has, prompted a lot of questions.
It really has. And that's what we're digging into today, isn't it? This really compelling theory trying to explain why then.
Precisely. Our conversation is inspired by the work of Lev Nemotin. Now, Dr. Nemotin has quite a varied background, PhD in mechanical engineering, work in nuclear reactor safety.
Which is interesting in itself, bringing that kind of analytical perspective to biology.
Definitely. And now he's CEO of N5 Digital, working on things like UVC air sanitization. And relevant to us, his own channel actually discusses virus survival and colds quite a bit.
Right. So he comes at this from a maybe less traditional angle than pure virology, and this hybrid theory of seasonal peaks with environmental amplification. Well, it's fascinating.
Yes, especially this TV effect concept. That's the core we want to unpack, right?
Yeah.
To see how it adds to the usual story.
Exactly. Our mission today is to explore this idea, see how it builds on, or maybe challenges, the standard explanations for why we get those two main cold seasons.
Okay, so let's start there. For a long time, the general thinking has been it's mostly about us, our behavior.
Right.
Kids back in school in the fall, everyone huddled indoors when it's cold or damp, maybe subtle immune system shifts. What are those typical explanations?
Well, the established view points to basically human factors. Increased indoor crowding is a big one. Pretty straightforward, closer proximity, more chances to share germs.
Makes sense.
Then there's the idea of minor variations in immune function seasonally. The evidence for major population-wide immune dips isn't always super strong, but it's considered. And finally, low indoor humidity. When the heating kicks on, the air gets dry. That might help virus particles hang around longer in the air, maybe affect our nasal passages.
Right. Dry air, close contact. It feels intuitive, like a recipe for cold spreading.
It does. It all sounds logical.
But this hybrid theory, the one we're diving into, suggests there's, another piece to the puzzle.
Exactly. What's really key about this theory is that it doesn't throw those factors out. It actually calls them the primary drivers.
Okay. So crowding, maybe immunity, humidity, they're still fundamental.
Yes, they set the stage. But the theory adds this extra layer, an environmental influence that acts like an amplifier specifically during those transition seasons.
An amplifier. Okay, interesting. So our behavior gets the ball rolling, but something else gives it an extra push.
That's a great way to put it. It boosts the infection rates precisely when we see those peaks.
Let's dig into those primary drivers a bit more then. Indoor crowding, just how big a factor is that thought to be?
Oh, it's definitely significant. Schools, offices, public transport. More people, more sharing, simple probability.
But you mentioned something interesting earlier.
Yes. The studies in closed populations, think military barracks, prisons, people are in close quarters pretty much year-round there.
Right, the crowding doesn't change much seasonally.
Exactly. But even in those settings, they still often see those seasonal peaks for colds.
Huh. So that really suggests crowding alone can't be the whole story for the timing, right?
Precisely. It points towards something else influencing when those peaks happen, even if crowding helps them along.
Okay, that's a crucial piece of evidence. What about the other primary factors? Immunity variations, humidity. How much weight does the hybrid theory give them?
They're likely contributors, part of the overall picture. Subtle immune shifts might make some people slightly more susceptible at certain times. Dry indoor air could help a bit with transmission indoors.
But maybe not enough to create those distinct peaks on their own.
That's the suggestion. They contribute to the baseline risk, but this theory argues they need that environmental kick the amplifier effect to really explain the sharp fall and spring surges.
All right, this brings us squarely to the novel part, the auxiliary amplifier. This TV effect, the environmental temperature crossings. Break that down for us.
Okay, so the core idea here is pretty fascinating. It's about virus survival outside the body. The theory proposes that common cold viruses, rhinoviruses mainly, don't just die off instantly in the environment.
Right, they can linger.
They can linger, but their ability to remain infectious isn't constant. It seems to be optimized at certain intermediate outdoor temperatures, not too hot, not too cold.
Like a Goldilocks zone for the virus.
Exactly. Dr. Moten calls this the viable survival zone, or TV. Within this temperature range, the virus structure might be more stable, allowing it to survive longer on surfaces or maybe even in aerosols outdoors.
Okay, a survival sweet spot. So how does the annual temperature cycle connect this to the fall and spring peaks?
Well, think about how temperatures change through the year. In the fall, we go from warmer summer temps down towards winter cold.
Right.
As the temperature drops, it has to pass through that intermediate TV zone, that Goldilocks range.
On the way down.
On the way down. Then comes spring, as things warm up from winter lows towards summer heat, the outdoor temperature passes back up through that very same TV zone.
Ah, so it crosses that optimal survival temperature range twice a year, once going down, once going up.
Precisely, during the fall transition and the spring transition.
And the idea is when the temperature's in that TV zone, the virus just hangs around longer outside. How does that boost infections?
It subtly increases the chance of environmental transmission. So if an infected person coughs or sneezes or touches a surface, the virus released might stay viable, stay infectious for just a little bit longer when the outdoor temperature is in that optimal TV range.
So someone might touch a doorknob or railing contaminated maybe a bit earlier and still pick it up.
Right.
Or maybe inhale particles that haven't degraded as quickly.
That's the proposed mechanism. It slightly improves the odds of the virus finding a new host via these indirect environmental routes during those specific transitional temperature windows.
Okay, so let me get this straight. It's not the temperature itself making us sick or directly weakening us?
No, not directly.
It's the temperature creating better survival conditions for the virus in the environment temporarily, like giving the virus a little environmental edge.
You nailed it. A temporary advantage. And again, this is crucial. The theory frames this TV effect as an amplifier, not the root cause.
Right, not the primary driver.
The primary drivers are behavior, crowding, maybe those small immune or humidity factors, create the underlying potential for transmission. The TV effect just gives that potential an extra nudge, a boost, specifically during those fall and spring temperature crossings.
Leading to the sharper peaks we observe.
Exactly. It helps explain the timing and the intensity of those peaks better than just looking at human factors alone.
Okay, so synthesizing this. The hybrid theory says our familiar double cold season happens because, first, human factors like being indoors more create the general conditions for spread.
Correct, the baseline susceptibility.
But then, as the outdoor temperature passes through this just right zone for virus survival, the TV zone, in both fall and spring,
the virus gets a temporary boost in environmental stability,
which amplifies transmission rates through things like contaminated surfaces, leading to those distinct seasonal peaks we all know.
That's a perfect summary. It's this interplay, this combination of human dynamics and this specific environmental temperature effect working in tandem.
It really paints a different picture. You can almost visualize it. A general background level of colds fluctuating a bit, and then these two distinct humps rising up right when the temperature crosses that TV zone in fall and spring.
That's a great way to think about it. A baseline driven by us with these environmentally amplified peaks superimposed on top during those transitional seasons. It matches the pattern we observe quite well.
It certainly makes you think beyond just washing your hands, although that's still vital, of course.
Absolutely vital. But it adds this environmental dimension, suggesting the world outside our bodies plays a more specific role in the timing than we perhaps thought.
Okay, so let's quickly recap the core takeaway from our deep dive today. This hybrid theory, especially with the TV effect idea, suggests our twice-yearly cold seasons aren't just about us being inside more or slight bodily changes.
Right. Those are the primary drivers, the foundation.
But the environment, specifically the outdoor temperature crossing through an optimal survival zone for cold viruses, the TV zone in fall and spring, acts as a crucial amplifier.
Giving transmission a temporary boost via improved environmental stability.
Exactly, leading to those predictable surges. It's a really fascinating concept, linking our behavior, our biology, and the ambient temperature cycle.
It truly is. It offers a more nuanced explanation for a phenomenon that affects almost everyone, prompting us to consider how these environmental factors might contribute to the rhythm of common illnesses.
And it leaves us with something interesting to consider, doesn't it? If this environmental amplification during temperature transitions is real, how might that influence how we think about preventing colds during those specific fall and spring windows?
That's the provocative thought, isn't it? Could anticipating these TV effect periods, these temperature crossings, lead to more targeted or timely public health advice, or even personal preventative measures beyond the usual year-round advice? something to definitely mull over.